Own your next move. Bold moves in business and life. Every successful story begins with a bold decision. Join me, Jennifer McPherson, as I uncover conversations with entrepreneurs, leaders, and innovators about pivotal moments that shape their journey. Authentic insights, inspiring lessons, and practical wisdom to help you own your own next. Jennifer McPherson here, host of this show, where we feature leaders from architectural, engineering, and construction companies and explore how they connect with communities, build trust, and tell compelling stories about the work they do. It's brought to you by Chickenango. Chickenango helps brands connect with their communities through thoughtful, strategic communication. Specializing in public engagement, branding, and messaging for sectors such as transportation, infrastructure, energy, and government. Chickenango turns complex projects into stories people can understand and care about. With decades of industry experience, their team builds trust through authentic storytelling and genuine collaboration. Discover how they're making a difference at chickenango.com. Recently, I was a guest on the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran, and I'm excited to share that interview with you here today. Enjoy.
Today, we're talking about how to communicate effectively, especially in today's very crowded media landscape. My guest today is Jennifer McPherson. I'll tell you more about her in a second, so stay tuned. All right, I'm super excited about our guest here today because we're going to talk about something, effective communication, which is something that I started my career in. I was a speechwriter. I was a writer in the Clinton White House. I did some PR work as well. And so it's something that I have thought a lot about. And of course, we are using a modern medium, podcasting, which is a tool for communicating. So what better way to do it? But Jennifer is the CEO and visionary behind Chickenango Marketing Solutions. It's a company that she founded to help with public engagement and marketing within the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. So if you've ever driven past a big public infrastructure project and thought, damn them for doing that, but also I'm glad that this freeway is going to be working better a few years from now, she helps with communicating around that. So how do you get people's attention and actually communicate? She's got 30 years of experience in this area. So I'm really excited to get into it. Also, 5 kids, amazing. And fun fact, Jennifer once rode her bike 1,000 miles in 10 days. That's 100 miles for 10 days straight. And she did it to honor Flight of Northern Colorado, which is a great cause. And we'll talk about in a second. Jennifer, such an honor to have you here. So first of all, honor flights, how did you get interested in that? Like, why is that the passion that you chose into? And I come from my grandfather, John the First, actually was a B-17 pilot in World War II. And so I know a bit about this wonderful organization.
Oh, wow. Well, I got into it. Well, my husband is a veteran. Well, he was on submarines, believe it or not, in the Navy, and have always really loved our veterans. I think that if you're a person that stands up, raises your hand, and says, "Yes, I will serve," there's a lot more to serving than going overseas and serving, but you sacrifice a lot from your family, not seeing your family, being away from your family constantly. I have 5 kids, so obviously I love families. I'm all about that. And I think that for anyone to stand up, raise their hand and say, yeah, I'll sacrifice my entire life for this, I think they deserve a lot of our attention.
Yeah, and Honor Flight, actually, tell us a little bit about what they do, because it's a great cause.
Oh, Honor Flight's amazing. So Honor Flight is an organization. It's a nonprofit that brings veterans, World War II, Korean and Vietnam veterans, back to Washington, D.C. to see the memorials that were built to honor them. So in that, I volunteered as a guardian on 3 honor flights. So I was a guardian. I had 3 different veterans under me on each flight that I was responsible for. We did a big hoopla at the start of it. We go up there, get up early, give them breakfast, feed them breakfast, give them all kinds of just flashy, fun things, get on a big giant bus and go down I-25, where along all the overpasses and even along the freeway, there are hundreds of people standing out there waving flags
Wow.
and just from the perspective of in the bus, sitting right next to a Vietnam veteran who, when he came home from service, people literally
Right.
spat on him.
Right.
And
No, yeah, no
he
thank yous. Just like
just
people
like,
blame them. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
tears, just crying, saying,
Yeah.
I never knew that people cared. And just that experience alone was enough to say, hey, I'll stand up, I'll raise money for this all day long. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you could talk about this for quite a while.
oh yeah.
Because so during college, there was a course at my university that was about the religious approaches to the Vietnam War. And the professor on it, Walter Capps, eventually was elected to Congress. And I took this class, and he was in Congress when I actually took the class being taught by a different professor and flew to Washington, D.C. to visit the Vietnam Memorial. And one of the things that was amazing about that class is they had this day where they would invite these veterans to come down on stage. And the first thing they would do is say thank you to them. And for many of them, it had been the first time this had ever happened. This is
Yeah.
back in the early 90s and the 80s and stuff like that when the wounds were still really raw. And I
Mhm.
remember participating in one of these during the class where these veterans are sitting on stage and some of them were sitting there. They sat there and they couldn't get a word out because they were just
Yeah.
struggling with the emotions around it and the trauma around the
Yep.
experience of it. But that it was so awful that they, it was a different era, but they, the veterans who fought in this war, came back and were not at all appreciated for the
Mhm.
sacrifice that they made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty unbelievable to watch. And, knowing that what is it? It literally was 50 years since they
Yeah.
were over there. And the level of emotion that's still wrapped around that and the level of hurt and just like
Yeah.
it's unreal.
And that
So,
trauma passes down
oh,
generations too.
yeah.
My son just went with his eighth grade class to Washington D.C. to see the monuments and everything. And I was trying to explain to him the Vietnam Veterans Memorial and how different it is and how why
Yeah.
that was so controversial when it first came out because you have all these different monuments that you see all around you in the National Mall that are big and white and made from marble and projecting up into the sky, and then you have this subterranean, this slash into the earth, this
Yeah.
black stone with the names written into it.
Yeah.
And we were there with Representative Capps, who was in Congress at the time, who had started this class with a group of students coming to visit it, and with the organizer who had been responsible for putting together this memorial, talking about the impact of it. And it was just so moving.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's really amazing that you were involved in that cause.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about this. So you spent a number of years working with primarily engineering firms inside helping them to um, to kind of bid on projects, I believe, and kind of in a marketing role with them. And what
Mhm.
inspired you to go out on your own? I want to hear your story behind it.
Well, let's see. I spent 27 years basically selling engineers. So typically they are bidding on projects for cities, counties, DOTs, major infrastructure projects. And so along those lines, you have to put together these very elaborate proposals. You have to break it down so it's got to be technical enough, but it can't be super technical because there's non-technical people reviewing these proposals and a lot of different competitors competing on these projects. So I did that for a long time. It's very intense. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of long hours. It's a lot of high stress deadlines. You're
Because
up
there's a lot of
against,
money on the line, right? These are
oh,
like
there's
multi-$100 million projects they're
yeah,
bidding on.
hundreds
Yeah.
of millions of
Yeah.
dollars in these
Wow.
projects. And so there's a lot of money on the line. You're, putting it all together and submitting it. And, you know, It's just a lot of high stress. There's a drop dead date. Everything's coming in. Everything's always changing. You're changing all these things. So it's very stressful. I think I lasted a lot longer than most people last in that
Yeah.
career.
So what was the
And
vision behind starting the agency then, and how is your role different now?
well, the vision was I wanted to do something. I wanted to do something in the industry, but something a little different. And I did work on some public involvement components while I was working for engineers. And I decided to start an agency that provided marketing services for engineering companies, branding, all the services, doing collateral and things like that. But then also that did public involvement on transportation infrastructure projects. So I started that 7.5 years ago, and we took off like a rocket. And honestly, I think we did because when you're providing public involvement on transportation projects, you're selling a story of why this project, what is this project, how it impacts you to people who are not engineers. These are people that live in these communities. They drive through the communities. They walk through these communities, and so it affects them in their everyday life. And so being able to take these projects engineering speak and then bring that down to a level where they can understand and really have some feedback and provide you with effective feedback that you can take back to the engineers to, in their design, maybe make some changes if need be, was a natural transition. So,
I want to ask about that, those communication strategies around it and how it's changed. But first, Chickenango, how did you come up with that name? Tell me about that.
well, it's Chickenango. You're super close.
Chickenango, Chickenango.
I came up with it because when I left the world of engineering, I didn't want it to be last names or initials because that is every engineering company that you
Everyone.
see out there in the
Yes.
universe.
Yes.
And so I could not think of a name, and Chickenango popped in my head because I lived in upstate New York. My husband and I moved from Washington State, where he was landed in the Navy, but he was from upstate. We moved out to upstate New York to Cazenovia. One of my daughters, she was only 4, and right next to us was a town called Chittenango, and that's where we went and got ice cream and pizza. So it was kind of a fun place to go. She couldn't say the name. She called it Chickenango,
Oh,
and
that's perfect.
it popped in my head, and I was
That's
like,
great.
okay, Chickenango.
And what was your family's reaction? You've got 5 kids, and what was your family's reaction like when you're like, after 27 years, like, I'm gonna go start my own business?
Oh, they didn't even think anything of it.
No, no, they didn't.
No,
Okay.
they didn't. I mean, now I think they're incredibly proud of me now, but at first they were probably just like every other human being when I said I'm going to go start my own business was like, "Oh, that's so cute." I mean, that's kind of what you get. Oh, it's so
Yeah,
cute. Oh, she's going to
yeah,
have a little business.
yeah.
But
I guess considering sometimes, I've interviewed people that have said like, "Oh, my family said it was crazy," or "Why are you doing this?" or "Why would you leave this stable career after 27 years?" I guess not having something like that at least
yeah,
was good.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, my husband wholeheartedly supported me because I don't know, it, the stress level that's involved in putting together these multi-millions of dollars worth of proposals is intense. And
So did you, I mean, because it's stressful to own your own business, but do you have an expectation that the stress level would go down by switching to your own agency?
yeah, and in a way it has, in other ways it hasn't. But the other part of starting my company is I provided a lot of opportunities for people within our industry because I had a couple of people come over from the engineering industry that I knew.
Mm,
And the most exciting part for me was to provide an opportunity where they were never, ever sitting in an office at 1 a.m. in the morning working on a proposal by themselves. Like, I'm
mm,
like, I will never do that to my people,
mm,
ever. That's never going to be the case if you come and you work here.
mm.
So I think for me, that was a big that was a big deal. Just being able to have that kind of level of control on what we're willing to accept as okay and what we're not willing to accept.
Let's talk about what you were saying earlier about communication strategies, because in these big public infrastructure projects that are happening, well, let's see, there's once the project is happening, but it sounded like you were also talking about getting the public involved, maybe on a scoping level or before the project is created. So, talk a little bit about some of the strategies that you employ to get busy citizenry to be interested and involved in some public infrastructure project that might take 10 years or more to complete and cause a lot of disruption in the meantime.
Yeah, so basically there's more types than this, but if I had to put it into compartments, there's three types of projects. There's planning, there's design, and there's construction. So planning is when you're first thinking about doing something. You might have a multimodal plan that you want to implement in your city, where right now it might be difficult for some people who might only use bicycles, or people that might be walking, or people that have mobility issues, to be able to get from point A to point B. And so you want to look at this big overarching plan to say, okay, how can we improve the mobility in this city? And that's the planning component. And then you have design. Once you go into all the plans and you figure out, okay, this is we put on some public meetings, we did some pop-up events, we got some really good feedback from people on how they use this space and how they use this whole entire corridor. Now we're going to take this plan, we're going to write it, put it into a plan. And then a lot of that times that plan, out of that plan comes several different opportunities for designs. So design of improvement of sidewalks, improvement of bike trails or signals or roadways in the area. So that's where design comes in. And that is true engineering. You have engineers putting together plans that will then take those plans and go from that design into construction.
And
And
that,
then,
imagine, involves like public meetings and
yes,
online collection of comments and things like that. Is your company coming in and facilitating like workshops and public meetings?
yes, yep, absolutely. Especially in the planning phase, that's where you will get public meetings. Public meetings have evolved. We still do public meetings, but there's a lot more pop-up type events where you're going to events where people already are. So
Mm.
you get a
Yeah,
wider range
I've
of,
seen that. Yeah,
yep,
yeah, where there'll be like some fair or festival or something
yep,
like that, and like the local city engineering office will be there to gather feedback on something.
yep,
Sometimes they get quite creative about it. They might
yep.
have some some activity to try and engage you and get you involved in it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we will go to those events and we'll actually go out into the crowd and ask
Yeah.
people questions and ask them how they're using the corridor. We recently did one at a local ice cream shop where we went to the ice cream shop and we hung out inside the ice cream shop so that we got a wider range of people that
Mm.
we
Wouldn't
wouldn't
show up
have.
to like a public,
Hmm.
comment meeting on an
Yes,
infrastructure project or
exactly.
something. Yeah. Yeah, which is a limited range of people that show up to those sorts of
It
things.
is.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
much the same people all over every time.
Right, right. Yeah. I served as chair of my town's planning commission for a number of years, and these
Okay.
meetings can get quite contentious when people get, involved in these things, if it affects their property rights, especially. How do you deal with, personalities like that are starting to get upset about changes?
Yeah. Well, that happens all the time. And you've got to be able to listen. You've got to be able to actively listen to people. And I think that is the most important skill that you can have when you're in one of those situations, is just being able to hear what they're saying. If you cannot hear what they're saying and you're always trying to respond to them or throw out a response, then they know that you're not hearing them and all they want to be is heard. And so I think just being able to fine tune your ability to actually hear what people are saying and then just reiterate it back to them. You can't solve their problem. Like nobody can. Like the world doesn't always come down to I'm able to solve this little problem over here. You've got a lot of moving parts. You got a lot of people, especially in these big infrastructure projects. But just being given the opportunity to be heard is really important for these people.
Yeah. What was it like? You start the firm, and I think about 2 years after that, the pandemic hits. Um, you're a newer business owner. What was going through your mind as that happened?
Well, I was concerned at first. I was like, oh my gosh, how is this going to affect me? Because everything was being shut down. But you know what wasn't shut down was all of the infrastructure projects. In
Hmm.
fact, they finished in record time during the pandemic because there were not as many people out on the
Cars of
road.
the road. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, seriously. So our stuff just kept going.
Hmm.
I learned that, I don't know, I worried maybe 1 or 2 months, and then I could see, wait a minute, nothing's shutting down. In fact, the DOT here was like, let's go, let's go, let's
Hmm.
go,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There were a lot of projects, I think, that were fast tracked because of that. They realized,
yeah,
okay, once people are going to be, there aren't going to be as many people out and about. Let's work on some big projects. Yeah.
yes,
And then it became, of course,
absolutely.
like kind of an economic stimulus as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what have been some of the challenges with the company, with having the agency going from being an employee to, having your, responsible for your own thing?
Oh, which one? How
Pick a
much
few, pick a couple.
like,
Yeah. How much time do we have? Yeah.
the probably the biggest challenge is going from knowing how to do one thing, like I know how to do the thing, but
Yeah.
and then running a business, which is a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
nother thing. So that was the biggest challenge, is just kind of figuring out your lane and how what you're doing inside of the business, because at some point you grow big enough that you really need to work on the business and you're not the one doing all the things. You
Right.
now have employees that are doing the things and they have very specific roles, and just understanding when you need to not jump back in and be in that role and stay kind of in your lane
Yeah.
and let them stay in their lane. And
Yeah.
so that was a big challenge for a while for me. And I think I've overcome that pretty well.
Yeah. And you have a cool project that's coming out. Is you're working on a proposal automation software or tool specifically for architects and engineers and construction? Talk about this.
Yes. So over the last year and a half, I've really dug deep into AI. A lot of people are you're either for it or you're like, oh, I'm not going to touch that. That's just a fad. And
Yeah.
like a big hoopla or whatever they want to call it. But um, I really took a deep dive into it, not just Chat GPT, but all kinds of different programs, and figuring out some of the things that I could do with these programs is unbelievable. And the amount of efficiency that we can create for our own company in using AI. And the fact that I've done proposals for 27 years, and I will tell you, the proposal process is just, I've worked in many companies, big, medium, small engineering companies, and it's always the same. You're always stressed out. You're always overburdened. You're always looking for this project description, and you have a database, but why isn't it in here? And this person wrote it last time, and you're going back to these old proposals, and it is just a nightmare. So I have created an automated system that uses AI and your own data to not only qualify an RFP that, yes, this is something that your team would go after, then it goes through all of the data and all the data points, like where is a proposal, where is who has worked in this project, and it goes all the way through and spits out at the other end a 90% complete proposal.
Mm.
So It's game changing, especially for people like me who inside of the
Spent those
industry.
long nights working on those projects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
changer, game changer. So we're hoping to launch it here in the next 3 months
How has it been to work
or so.
on
It might be a little bit longer.
How has it been to work on that project? You got the agency which is kind of your bread and butter, and then you have this future project that you're working on. How have you balanced the workload, and how have you, figured out how to navigate developing a software?
Well, I have engineers helping me. So
That
I'm not
helps.
developing it.
Yeah.
I'm not the one developing it. But in the last year and a half, I've really learned to, and I'm gonna name drop. Can I name drop?
Sure.
Thanks to Jason Swank,
Jason, yeah.
because I joined his community and it really changed how I thought about being a business owner and the things that I did inside of my business. So before that, I was like in it and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really freed up enough time for me to realize, look, this is the most important project that I need to be driving down the road right now
Mm-hmm.
because I know this will help a lot of people. So that's kind of, I guess, how I do it.
That's great. Yeah. Well, this has been great, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you? And I don't know if there's any information available for people around the software yet, but at least the agency. Where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, LinkedIn, I'm all over LinkedIn, Jennifer McPherson. And then my website is Chickenango, spelled chicken, ANGO.com. And yeah, that's, I guess, where the two spots that I hang out the most.
Is your daughter pretty proud that she named your company?
I'm sure she is.
That's great.
Especially now that she's a mom. So she's got a 18-month-old. So
Oh, great.
she has a greater appreciation of those cute little languages.
Oh, nice. All right, Jennifer, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Own Your Next. Subscribe and share with friends. And remember, success isn't behind you. It's boldly owning your next move.